Hi, I'm Jim.
And I'm David.
And this is the Practical Guitarist Podcast.
The podcast for people who eat, sleep, and breathe guitar. The Practical Guitarist Podcast is brought to you by Great Lakes Guitar Pickups. Great Lakes Guitar Pickups provides fantasy tones at prices a practical guitarist will love. Featuring top-notch construction, attention to detail, and a fully custom product, if you can dream it, Great Lakes Guitar Pickups can probably build it. Follow them on Facebook at facebook.com/Great Lakes Guitar Pickups. Are you a regular listener? Why not? David here reminding you of all the ways you can participate in the Practical Guitarist Podcast. Subscribe using your chosen podcast app. Review us on iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, or Google Play. Find our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/practicalguitarist or on Twitter as @practguitarist. Support the show. Merchandise is available in our Threadless store at practicalguitaristpodcast.threadless.com. And donate to us via Patreon, available at patreon.com/practicalguitarist. Reach out to us directly via email at questions@practicalguitarist.com. Hello, Jim.
Hi, David.
I've heard
glad to see the bird is back.
I've heard that you have many things that you'd like to talk about in this episode.
I do. But we'd like to start with something that's very important first. For anyone that would like to email email the group.
I specifically this person known as Done with Heart on iTunes.
And we do appreciate this, by the way. This is, even though that was a 1-star review,
he's not giving us a 1-star. He said, I want you to give you your email address so we can contact you directly, and then I'll change my review.
Right. And so the email address is questions@practicalguitarist.com.
Yes.
If you don't listen to the header, which I know some people I do it. I do that. There are certain YouTube channels I just skip over because it's like, we'd like to thank our Patreon supporter. And then it's like, I don't know if you guys.
Or they list everybody that's in the Patreon and there's like 500 people.
Yep. So this I can't remember what the children's show was. It's like when I was 3, so this was 1967. But it was this little thing where she goes, I see Jimmy and I see Carol and I see Brad and I see. You are boring them.
I'm a kid and I don't want to watch this.
I'm 3 and I'm bored already.
I don't care what that kid's name is.
So anyway, we're going to start today because Stephen Conrady sent me a video. I had seen the first video in this quote-unquote series of things that beginners shouldn't buy. And this was by a YouTube channel. I don't know. I don't really want to call them out, but but it's easy enough to YouTube search it.
You can search the video name.
Yeah. Amps for beginners, guitars for beginners, and the person will pop up. Very popular YouTube artist with some people, and so the first thing that they recommended or said amps to avoid for beginners, and I'm going to read real quick, real fast. Computer amps. Amps with headphone jacks you should have, and you should always have one.
Computer amps.
Yeah, I'm going to get to that. Yeah, giant tube amps you should avoid those. You should have combo amps, not head and cabinet. Kemper and Axe effects you should avoid those, and starter amps like those little $20 amps. So I'm gonna just go right into this because I know. Believe it or not, it wasn't as flaming as I'm making it sound, because actually he said, play with whatever you got. He said this in both of them. But then he got condescending.
But then he proceeds to be like, just basically don't buy anything.
But don't buy anything that's this really good.
No, just don't buy anything. He basically he systematically excluded anything you can buy. Literally anything.
Don't buy a Boss Katana head because you're not good enough for it. Don't buy a Marshall, tube amp because you're just not good enough. You need headphones because you suck and your parents don't want to hear you practice. That's pretty much what he said.
I wouldn't buy an amp with a headphone out on it at all.
He got condescending Well, I
Oh,
got
I
one.
did. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. He got really condescending. But my whole thing, and I try not to spill my water here. My whole thing, but even when you listen them off, like right now, I'm just kind of like ticking off the check boxes. I'm like, no computer amps. So that basically takes all the digital stuff off the table, right?
Yeah.
No large amps. So that leaves like what, like Hot Rod Deluxes and stuff like that, which are
I would call them
loud.
I would call them, yeah.
And then he says no head and cabinet. He says no starter amps. What the hell are you supposed to buy?
Right.
What are you supposed to buy?
And then he proceeded to go, I'll tell you what you should buy. And then the only thing he mentioned was the G-Deck.
Oh, gross.
The Fender G-Deck. He's like,
gross.
This is a great amp.
But that's a computer amp.
I said, here's a guy who does clinics. And he goes out. Yeah, exactly, Dan. He goes out and says, you know what? You should come to my clinic. And what does he do at a clinic? He plugs in a computer. He doesn't play through real amps at clinics unless he's doing a clinic for an amp seller. And him and there's a few other ones that are playing these Vola guitars. I have never seen anybody ever ask me, should I buy a Vola? I have not seen one person playing a Vola outside of these people that are shilling for them. Not one.
I look, I don't care about his endorsements. This is not an endorsement driven thing. He put together a piece of content that wasn't clear.
Right.
And so for what it is, it's just not clear. Honestly think that this conversation is more about the fact that things to keep in mind when you're buying your first amp. That really should have been the conversation. It's like, don't buy a big amp because you're not, you don't know if you're going to stick with it, and you really don't want to have something that's too big and too cumbersome and doesn't allow you to do the, and I get it. Don't spend a lot of money on your first amp.
Right.
Telling somebody not to buy a computer amp for their first amp, that's like, well, maybe if you mean Axe-Fx or Helix or something like that, but those aren't amps. Those are modelers.
No, they're modelers.
My personal opinion on this, if we were gonna make this piece of content, would be, here are the things to avoid, and then here's 3 amps that we would suggest you look into, depending on what your musical tastes are,
and what your space and monetary limitations are. Like if you told me you only had $100 for an amp, I would tell you to go get a Boss Katana Mini.
Yeah, I mean, why not? Or even a Black Star Fly and save $40. Save $40 so you can buy a bigger amp when you need it. I just, if I were to say, I would say the Katana Mini is a great first option for people on a budget. I would say if you've got a little bit of money to spend, just a regular old Katana, either the 50 or 100 would probably serve you very well. And if you're going to do that, you do owe it to yourself to check out the other digital offerings from companies like Fender and Marshall and Line 6. But you said something to me earlier, Jim, that I think you hit on that was really important, which is that find something you like the sound of.
Right.
I mean, don't just buy it because some guy says either do it or don't. Like, pick what you like. And you and I both know, because we're experienced guitar players, depending on what your goals with guitar are, different pieces of equipment become different options. If your goal is to play heavy metal,
you're not going to buy a Fender.
Recommend you to buy a 10-inch combo.
Right. You're not going to go out and buy a Blues Junior.
Yeah. I mean, and again, I'm generalizing so much that I know I'm kicking myself in the ass, because I know there are 10-inch combos that do a really good job at that. I haven't seen any that I can think of offhand, but I'm sure somewhere out there there's some ass-kicking little 10-inch speaker that just sounds great.
I'm sure.
So don't limit yourself to what these guys on YouTube are saying. Go find something that actually works for you.
Absolutely. And then there was Guitars Beginner's Show.
I didn't even bother to watch that.
And there was only one that I actually agreed with. If you're an absolute beginner,
I figured that was going to come up.
Avoid that. But P90s, he said avoid P90s because they're microphonic and loud, and they have that hiss. I'm like, that's the reason you should not avoid it.
I have yet to play a pair of P90 pickups that are microphonic.
Yeah, that was
almost all of them are potted.
Yeah, nowadays they're potted and they're good. But anyway, a budget box guitar. What's wrong with that? If you're a beginner, what's wrong with starting with a budget box?
Well, depending on what it is. I mean, if they're talking about a first act,
yeah, that's a different thing. But
buy a guitar from a music store that's reasonably inexpensive.
Right. I mean, I will give you that. What can you expect from $100 for the guitar, amp, strap, picks, everything else? You can't really expect a lot. But if you're a beginner and that's what you get and that's all you have,
what do you need as a beginner? Strings, a fretboard, and some pickups.
I kind of agreed with the extended range. I don't think a 7-string or an 8-string is good for a beginner.
No, probably not. Probably not. Well, I mean, maybe if you're like if your goal when you're starting guitars, I want to play Korn songs, then get a 7-string.
Right. But that's what I was just going to say. But if your goal is up in there in the 7-string category, you're a heavy metal player, and you want to be doing that, then not having it is kind of silly. And the last one I thought was very surprising: an acoustic. That a beginner should avoid an acoustic. I was like, what?
I kind of agree, though, Jim.
I go both ways on that, and I'll tell you why I go both ways on that.
And it has to do with what your goals are.
That's right. If you're out there, let's face it, most people are trying to be either Taylor Swift or Ed Sheeran right now. And so, I mean, and they're trying to do their indie rockers. And most of these indie rockers and these people are putting out acoustic records. And why would you not start an acoustic? Unless you'd spend a ton of money on a piezo system for an electric, where piezo systems are built into most acoustics.
Yeah, but I mean,
even under $300.
If you're looking to actually learn the instrument long term, I would not, and really want to go into like different genres and stuff, and that up front. Like sometimes I want to play blues, I want to play jazz, and I want to play just get yourself an electric. It doesn't matter really. In the beginning, I would say it doesn't really matter what kind of electric guitar it is. I would recommend a Telecaster for most beginners because they're dirt simple, and learn on that. And then you can start making choices about where you should go, because you may not know if you're that open to it. If your goal is to learn to play guitar and not to learn to play this style of music on guitar, then that's when you want to look something general like a Telecaster or a Stratocaster.
Yep, I agree. A Telecaster, a Stratocaster, some inexpensive Epiphone, a Schecter, an Ibanez.
Right.
We could go on for days on which ones to pick. Honestly, I mean, I'm not down on the guy, because he did, he kind of sounded sincere when he said, well, what you got is what you got and stuff. But it just came across as kind of douchey when he went, well, you're not as good as me because I have this and I have that. I have another thing. And I do them so well. And I don't even own a starter guitar. Well, whoop-de-doo. I mean, it kind of came across, even though he didn't mean it to, I'm sure he didn't mean it to. It came across a bit douchey to me that it was like, you're not good enough to do it.
I think he was being genuine as far as he can. And so for him to be genuine means that, sometimes people have personality quirks people don't like. I mean, look at me. Everybody thinks I'm an asshole. So
most people think I'm a giant douchebag. So and if you knew me in person, you'd know I was a giant douchebag.
No, I don't think you measure up to Bono.
I'm trying, a giant turd. But I saw that South Park.
Yes.
But okay, so something I wrote down specifically, because when my daughter was born, our first child was born, she came premature, and when she came out, everybody was like, "She's a preemie." Everybody from the social workers to the doctors to everyone said, "Don't run out and buy preemie clothes. Don't run out and buy preemie."
Yeah.
You know why? Because you're not there that long. And I want to say that about a beginner. You're not going to be a beginner that long. 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is you get. And that's why I think these rules are kind of, other than the Floyd Rose thing, and you probably shouldn't get a 200-watt head or whatever. But other than that, I mean, these things you're only a beginner for about 6 months. You're intermediate after that. You may be beginning intermediate or low end intermediate, but you're still intermediate. Hell, I'm 57 years and I'm intermediate. 47 years.
I mean, I'm intermediate as well. I mean, but
I would never call myself advanced in any way, shape, or form.
I think I had this conversation with Dan Kish the other night, and I said, people who think they're good at guitar rarely are, and it's the people who pursue guitar as a method of learning throughout their lives that really are the people that know what they're doing. It doesn't mean that they're good or they're great. I mean, even your professional guitar players, they're better than us, but the reality is that's because they're constantly trying to evolve and learn.
Absolutely. And any good guitar player, I mean, look at, I'm taking this out of guitar context, but it was a great interview with Neil Peart. And Neil Peart said, he was taking drum lessons. And here's a guy that, he was taking drum lessons.
Why would he need them? He should be teaching them.
This was in the 90s and 2000s, and he's taking drum lessons. This is a guy that definitely knew the drums. And yet he also knew you never know everything.
It's a constant pursuit. And that's the way I look at it. I'm sure that's the way you look at it, Jim. So,
yeah, I do.
So
yeah, I just think that it's important to remember that you're only a beginner for a certain amount of time. So if it's your first guitar and you're trying things out and stuff, yeah, you want to kind of smartly, you should. But let me tell you something. If you're 50 years old or you're 45 years old, you decided to pick up the guitar, you make $100,000 a year, you make $70,000 a year, you've got $8,000 to burn, and you want to buy that custom Les Paul and
that's your first instrument that you want to do. Nobody should be telling you no.
That is so hot. I mean, I know people who live in New York City who finally retire. They never owned a car.
Yeah.
So when they leave the city, they buy like the nicest car you've ever seen in your life, and they're like, "Yeah, I don't know how to shift."
Yeah, they're like driving it off the lot, and the dealers have to show them how to drive stick or something.
Yeah, yeah. They've never driven. They've got a license. They're driving on a permit. I mean. So this does happen, and you gotta take that with the salt that it deserves. And again, I'm not down. I think Robert Baker is probably an awesome.
Everybody's situation is really different, and that's ultimately what we're getting at here.
And that's what I was trying to get, and that's what we need to be. So remember, whatever you get and what you can make noise with, and what makes you pick up that guitar, whether it's because it's a color purple or because it's super light, or because you like the way it feels in your hands.
How did you guess, Jim? The color purple.
It is color purple. Whatever it is that makes you pick it up, that's what helps you to learn. So that's the awesome thing. That's what I get.
I think Jim completely missed what I was trying to tell him, but that's okay.
I know he did. And I'm talking about myself, but I didn't miss it. I saw the movie.
No, we're not talking about the movie.
Oh, then I really don't know.
You'll get it later.
Oh, yeah, I completely missed that. Yep. That one went.
Really small part of.
Yeah, it's very small, actually. All right, so moving right along. Is that your pinky? All right, or you just happen to see me. So a regular contributor to the group, Jay Wells, had an epiphany this week, and he said that he had got his first really good guitar and first really good amp, and he wanted to thank us for some recommendations we made and some
First
of the
off,
stuff we talked about.
You don't have to thank us. Look, we had nothing to do with it.
That's right.
We exposed you to things maybe you hadn't thought about doing before. It's not like we woke up in the morning and we're going to expose ourselves to Jay and then he's going to do something for us. That's not what happened there.
It was a hot Cosby.
Oh my God. Let's never talk about Cosby on this show again.
That's done.
Oh my God. Oh,
it's terrible.
Yes.
What are you talking about?
He is a terrible individual.
He is. That's the truth.
He's going to prison.
Yep. Where it belongs. That's where people like that belong. But on a serious note, yeah, no, Jay, you did the thing. You did the right thing. I thought that when you thanked us, I appreciated it. It's very humbling to hear that. But and I got to say, you got some killer stuff, man. You got a new you got a tube amp, and now you know what we mean when we say a tube amp. It's a tube amp.
Yeah,
and the modelers don't do it.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about today, Jim. Like my Mark V is not as good as my Helix. It's just not. Wait, did I say that right? My Helix is not as good as my Mark V.
That was kind of backwards.
Yeah, well, I did it on purpose, but
I know.
No, but you know what? To be honest with you, like we actually do follow along with people in the group, like what they have, and we know you guys like. I mean, as well as you can for somebody online. Right. And as the group continues to grow, and I know that's going to become more difficult. But yeah, I mean, when I see somebody like who's basically taken it upon themselves to change their gear life, that's kind of cool. Like, to be honest with you, I am a practical player, And I think tube amps are still pretty practical.
Yeah.
And so for what it's worth, I mean, I think, yeah, they're practical. And check them out. I mean, like, what did he end up buying for an amp? I don't remember.
It was a Bugera. I want to say it was.
The Bugera. I think it was a V22. If Jim, if
I think that's right.
Memory serves me, and those are good little amps.
I had one.
Yeah, I've played. Actually, one of my friends has one, and it's a good little amp. Actually, we're really shocked. It sounds pretty good compared to his Princeton, and the only thing is, I've heard a little bit of reliability stuff about them. But if you have one of the Infinium versions, a lot of those things are supposed to be ironed out anyway. So,
right. The early ones, they got a bad rap because the early ones literally caught on fire.
It was kind of like some of them did.
Yeah, not all of them. But it was like the early Samsung phones there two versions ago that caught on fire in your pants because of the battery issues. They didn't all catch fire, and they've worked those bugs out, obviously. It's the same thing with the Infiniums. Apparently there was a tube socket issue or something, and so...
Yeah, they were arcing across a tube socket or something like that. Yeah. You know, it may have just been a board layout issue. It may have been something simple like that they corrected in a further version. But anyway, all that stuff gets revised. I mean, Bugera's still around. So if Bugera wasn't putting out a quality enough product that people were buying them, they wouldn't be around anymore. That's right. A la B52. Remember those guys?
Yep. Those guys are gone.
Yeah. I mean, so, I mean, but understand that Bugera is a clone, I believe, of Matchless. So if you get your hands to try out an actual Matchless, I'd love to hear how it compares.
Yeah, that would.
Because I've heard they're really good in comparison to the Matchless for the amount of money. So
yeah, and the Bugeras are really good for the money. I've got to say,
$200 or something. I mean, they're insanely cheap.
Insanely cheap. Yeah, used one you can get for almost nothing. And
I've almost bought their Marshall Plexi clone a couple of times.
Yeah. What is that? $400 or $500?
Yeah, it's like stupid cheap.
Ridiculous cheap.
You can't touch the Marshall version for under $3,000.
Yep. For what you're getting, awesome. So he got a Bugera and he got himself a Santana PRS SE in a matte black, and you can tell it has not been played.
Yeah, that thing is really cool looking.
Oh yeah, it's really killer. With that matte black is as you play it, it's gonna shine up where your arm touches and where you play.
It also wear faster where the pick hits it too. So you're gonna get some pretty cool wear in that thing.
Yeah, it's gonna look that thing will wear awesome. So you in 3 or 4 years that thing's gonna start looking, as long as you're playing it pretty regularly, it'll start looking like a real.
The main thing is gear inspires people, and I know people don't see. We were going back to the beginner guitar argument. People don't really seem to understand that, like, when you get a new piece of gear, you might spend 3 or 4 hours just messing around with it.
Right.
And during that 3 or 4 hours, you're going to come up with things. And that's a huge part of the way that I play guitar, which is like, I've got all this gear. I have a lot of things I don't play a lot with. I've only plugged this 50-50 in maybe 4 or 5 times. But I know when I finally start using it, like, I'm going to really get into it. Yeah. And that's going to get me playing.
Yeah.
So for a lot of people, just buying a new guitar like that, it gets you playing. And for some people, they just flip guitars. So
right. And then the next guitar is the best guitar they ever owned.
Yeah.
The best guitar they ever owned is the last one they had, and the next one they're getting.
John Bollinger from Premier Guitar, that's what he does. He actually, and I read this on premierguitar.com where they talk about how he's got like 4 or 5 different guitar slots in his arsenal. And when he sees a guitar that's better than the one he has, he sells the one he has and he gets the other one.
Another one.
So,
yeah. So what I do is usually, I mean, now I've got a little more choices, but I look at my wall and I go, which one do I want to pick up today?
Yeah.
And it's not about I'm just practicing parts, so I could care less about the quote unquote tone. I just pick up the guitar that you know what, I'm going to play the SG today. Or I'm just going to play. I'm going to play the Floyd Rose or the not Floyd Rose or the Telecaster now or the RG. And so it's just one of those things I do. And sometimes I pick up the acoustic and mess around with that because I don't want to plug in an amp and I don't want to do all that stuff. So it just depends. So it is nice to have a couple of guitars laying around, different colors, feel and so forth makes you want to do things differently.
Yeah.
And along with that, moving right along.
Well,
today, folks, I have notes. So I'm dangerous. So it might actually seem like we know what we're doing today. Today's random trivia. I want to do the weekly random trivias. Random trivia for today. Zakk Wylde's original design for his Bullseye guitar, Les Paul, was actually a screw up.
Yeah.
Dare I say fuck up by the artist.
Mm-hmm.
It was supposed to be the vertigo symbol.
Yes, the vertigo, like
the thing that coils from the outside. You used to have umbrellas, you'd spin them, and it looks like it was constantly better. But the artist didn't do it properly. I think it had something to do with the pickups and the way the swirl didn't quite work. He goes, "Oh, this will look a lot better," and he handed him a Bullseye.
Which basically meant that he fucked up and he realized it, and he was like, "Oh, here you go."
Whoops. So yeah, hopefully, I don't know if Zakk paid him or not, but the artist didn't do it properly. That's why the new Wild guitars actually have the vertigo.
Yeah.
Thing. And I just noticed that because Henning, for those who don't know, Paul Henning's channel is going to be giving away Henning Pauly. Henning Pauly. You're absolutely right. That's right. So Etsy Pie on YouTube, you should look it up. And him and Robert Baker, they have this unboxing. Surprise, surprise, they're going to give away like 14 Schecters, 12 Schecters. There's a pie, and they are not crap guitars. So if you get a chance, check out the channels, get in on it, and get your name.
Speaking of giveaways.
Yes, and speaking of giveaways, which is where I was rolling to next, we are having a giveaway. So Monday which is tomorrow, which I guess you guys will be listening to that. First folks will be listening to that. It'll be today to you. The pickups will come to me for the RG. They're humbuckers. I've seen the pictures of them, and they look completely awesome. So thank you to Nick Bongers. And these pickups I'll be demoing them, and then we're going to give them away.
Yep. Tell your friends.
Tell your friends. Tell your enemies. Tell your cousins.
Yeah, we're going to give you details in the near future of the actual giveaway terms and conditions, but expect to connect with us on Facebook and with Nick on Facebook via his company's site, and also with maybe on Instagram, Twitter, other things. Yeah. So there's going to be a little bit of that, and there's going to be a little bit of scavenger hunt. There will be some. Right. We're going to have a message.
We don't want this to be just here, take these.
And we want open engagement with our members.
Right. We want you guys to enjoy it. So there will be things that you'll do. I mean, it won't be anything like,
won't be insane. Like we'll have a message and then you have to go and post it in 2 places.
Or something like that.
Yeah. Or, then you'll be entered in a drawing. So it's all fair. It's not about, who does it faster or anything like that.
But it is. Yeah, we don't want to be, the first person that answered the question correctly or the first person that shared this out to 10 people. I mean, if people can share angel photos on Facebook, like angels are sitting there going, I wonder what's on Facebook. Oh, look, there's a picture of me. You could probably share our stuff. But anyway, so again, thanks to Nick Bongers at Great Lakes Guitar Pickups. I'll get this right before the end of the year.
Custom guitar.
Great Lakes custom guitar pickups. I will say that the ones that are coming, they're PAFs, right? PAF clones.
Sort of. They're modern PAFs.
Modern PAFs, not potted. So these things are going to be really cool. Really cool. Looking forward to putting them in the Ibanez RG. So I got some help, and this will be cool. This will be fun. Today begins my year, actually 2 years of no gear, but it ended with a bang. It ended with a bang that my bank account said, you better not spend a whole lot of money the next
Wait a minute. How long did this one last?
Well, this one's going right now. It just lasted a day. It lasted a whole day because I didn't buy anything yesterday. All right, so it ended with a bang, though. That's what I wanted to get at. So my year of not of what I was supposed to not buy gear ended quickly. So
I just want to say I called it.
Yeah, 2 years. 2 years, folks. 2 years.
2 hours.
So yeah, I'm hoping for 3. My bank account says it's going to last at least until Friday. So anyway, it ended with I have for those who didn't see pictures in the group, I have a Flyer Telly that I got, and I'll be getting some Telly pickups possibly in March. So that's going to be going on, but that will be not for me. That will be for the giveaway. And I have a brand new, still has the cardboard thing over the handle, Boss Katana 100, 1x12. And I have my TC Electronics G system that I think we've discussed on the show before. We're going to discuss a little bit more today because I called David in a panic saying, I am an idiot, please help me. And he was right, or I was right, I was an idiot. And, oh shit, what was the other thing? It was one other thing.
It's not important. Just go in order.
Not important. It's just a bunch of crap. It's just a bunch of crap.
None of it's important. This is a guitar. None of this shit's important.
Oh wait, I got this for 70 cents. I got this Plano pick.
You still didn't tell people what you're talking about in the background. Jim bought a Telecaster, everybody. Jim bought a Telecaster.
Jim bought a Telecaster. That's what's weird. That is very strange. Jim bought a Telecaster. It's right.
A shitty Telecaster.
No, it's not. It was. Okay, so it was dropped. For those who don't know, it was a scratch and dent.
Quality level of that Telecaster
is shit.
Yes.
But then again, I'm going to say this about Telecasters. I don't care.
Fine.
Yeah. It's a block of wood with another block of wood that's called the neck, and it's got some strings on it. So it's a Telecaster, right? I mean, that's really what a Telecaster is.
A neck plate, a neck, and a body. With,
that's right.
The bare minimum hardware.
2 pickups, a volume, a tone, and a freaking selector switch, and that's it. And to be honest with you, it sounds pretty decent. I put it through some rigor. I'll put up some tone stuff, but it's got a maple neck, which is actually something I wanted. I had told David I was looking for stuff. The problem is, for some reason, every time I find a maple neck, I don't have money. When I have money, I find freaking rosewood necks all day long. And it's not because of, you love the tone of a maple neck. I just like the look of a maple neck. I like the feel of it. So don't give me any shit.
Keep talking, Jim. I got to step away for a minute.
That's all right. So the Telecaster, it's blonde. It was a scratch and dent from Guitar Center. I went to bring it back because that's what I do. I went to bring it back so I could get something else. And unfortunately, you can't return scratch and dents. Surprise, Jim, your first scratch and dent. I did not know that. So there's a little Guitar Center return policy thing is they don't take back scratch and dents. But what they did do for me, they didn't have to do, because I only paid $140 for this guitar, was they took it apart and they set everything up for me. So luckily, the guy at Virginia Beach Guitar Center who does repairs is a good friend of mine, because he said, give me that. And he pulled it apart and he tightened everything down and put everything back together and tuned it back up. And it sounded great. It was like, and of course he's like he's just this incredible player. He's one of those guys that, he works at a Guitar Center, but he should be doing something else. Which is playing guitar. He's an awesome guy, awesome individual, and awesome player. And so I want to give Johnny a shout out. So it plays better than it did the day I bought it, and it's been dropped and somebody asked me, the manager came in, he goes, what were you doing, eating your guitar? I said, no, I bought it this way.
Which they all know you.
There's a big chunk out the back. Yeah.
I think you should just drill some random fucking holes in it.
I'm going to start fucking it up. There's no question about that. But I like you know what sucks? I was talking about the color. I want to keep that color.
I'm just like, weight relieve it. 2-inch holes. 2-inch auger bit, and you're ready to go.
Turn it into freaking Swiss cheese. I can't fuck with it too much before Nick sends me the pickups because I want them to be then I'll start. But I will do something with that pick guard. I can't stand the black pick guard. That is so boring. Look at that. It's boring.
And I think it's a good look for that guitar.
Do you?
Yeah.
With the cream, with the butterscotch color.
Uh-huh. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was thinking maybe a wilder like blue but maybe I do definitely need to change the nut. The nut's a piece of crap.
Yeah, the nuts.
But I don't have to change it right away because it's working. But you and I both know that nut's gonna be the first.
You gonna put bone on it? I don't really see any tonal benefit to bone. I think we talked about this before.
There isn't.
No, I know people. Yeah, but I know people think there is. Like,
nope, it's not for tonal benefit. I only want to put a nut on it that's going to last.
Because
I know
plastic. Yeah, bone will last, but I mean, so will I use GraphTech. I mean, that's
GraphTech would be fine.
Yep. Anyway, it's not the same stuff, but you know what I'm saying. What's our next topic?
All right, our next topic is.
We're just moving right along tonight.
I'm telling you,
I'm gonna have to take a bird walk.
The next topic is Jim was an idiot.
Oh, you sure were. You sure were, man. He calls me up this morning. And I'll tell the story from my perspective. He sends me a Facebook message, right? And he says, David, he's like, I've got a problem. Help. And I responded and I said, what's going on? What did you blow up? And then he calls me on Skype and I ask him, what did you blow up? And he goes, I didn't blow up anything, I promise. And so he takes me over to his effect processor unit and his amp via the camera, and he's showing me all the ins and outs because he's running 4 cable. And what's happening is he's hitting the amp and it's clean. He's not getting any of the preamp sound coming out of the amp. He's on the dirtiest channel with the gain turned all the way up, and it's clean. For lack of a better word, right? So then he takes the cable and he plugs direct, and he shows me, okay, so this is how it's supposed to work, and it doesn't work when you do it this way. So, long story short, we go through this little troubleshooting session, and I tell him, I said, the loop you are using is not engaged for the 4 cable method. If you're not familiar with what 4 cable is, what it allows you to do is it takes the modeler input. Actually, you plug into the modeler sends a send into the front end of your amp. The return comes back into the return on your model. Actually, it comes into the return on your modeler. And then you have another loop that in the effects loop where the send and return come back into the modeler. So basically what this allows you to do, allows you to use your preamp like a pedal, like a drive pedal. Right. And then you can turn it on and off using the modeler, or you can reroute things in front of it or behind it in the modeler. Yep. That's the idea. And so when he's saying, oh, it's clean, it's only clean, I'm going, you're running direct into the loop, into the return on the amp, which is what's causing that. And you're skipping all of that other loop that actually is doing is handling the preamp. So what we found out was the manual he had for his is it G system or is it the
yes. Yep.
The manual he had for his G system is for like the early release. And then he's like 5 versions higher than that. And they changed the name of the setting he's looking for, and the location of it, which makes it even better. We found it real quick. We turned on, all of a sudden it starts working. And Jim is freaking out because he's like, I feel like such an idiot. Why couldn't I figure that out myself? And I'm just sitting there going, you don't really use 4 cable all that much. Like, you've never run into this before. I've run into this many a time.
Right. So, so 4 cable. First, I'll talk to the 4 cable that I do.
Yeah, because I described it very poorly.
Right. And then I'll describe that. So normally what I do is I go from my guitar into my drive pedals, from my drive pedals out to the front end of the amp, from the send of the amp into any color stuff, mods, delays, reverbs.
Because he does it wrong, mods.
Yeah, I didn't. It's not mods, it's modulators. But
even your modulation bells, you do it wrong.
Yeah. And then out of that into a boost pedal, the boost pedal goes back to the return of the amp, and that way I can boost the signal. And it affects it the way I want. Because if you put a booster before the front end of the amp and you're already saturating, guess what's going to happen? It's not going to do anything.
Unless you want a gain boost.
Right. So I put the boost behind it into the effects loop. So all it is a clean boost. it literally just turns the volume up. So that's the whole effect. That's the effect I want from my boost. If I want that, you're right. I would boost like overdrive, driving the amp harder. I would put it to the front end. But that would be, again, that's not what I was looking for. So anyway, so in this, what I didn't realize is, and this is something that this thing does that some of the modelers do and some of them don't, is the send return is really just another loop which can be turned on and off. And so, as David explained, you go into the effects processor, you come out of the send of the amp into the front end of the amp, and then the front end of the amp goes back to the return of the loop. So now what's happened is everything that's front end is my filter, my compressor
is in a loop on the
is in one loop, and all my dirt pedals, which effectively is the same thing I was doing already. And that's all into the front end of the amp. Now the return of the send of the amp goes into return. I know that can be confusing, of the effects processor, and then the output of the effects processor goes to the return of the amp. And that way, that is where I've got my modulation, my pitch, my delay, my reverb, and my boost. So now all those color things are in there. But anything like a wah and something like that, you're going to put into the front end of typically in front end, your filter effects and things like that. So anyway, what I didn't realize is this thing can be treated like it's got 5 loops. It says 4, but the insert, which is your send return, is a 5th loop. So, and I can turn it on and off, which now that I know that, now that can be a clean, dirty, click, clean, click, dirty, click, clean, click, dirty, just like that. Pretty cool, right?
Yep.
Without having to change into my clean channel, I can go to the lead channel on this thing.
The cool part is the programmability, so you can change like 3 or 4 things at once.
Yeah.
And that's why I love modelers, is that I have very complicated changes I want to do at the time. I don't want to just turn on a drive pedal. I want to turn on a drive pedal, a modulation pedal, and kick on the wah. It's
exactly. I mean, I know some people, that's what they do. When they go to a lead, all they do is click on their boost. I want delay. I may want more reverb or a different reverb. I may want a different drive pedal or a different distortion. So all these things need to change. They got to change at the same time. And I am not interested in tap dancing my way into a solo.
Or trying to get those 3 pedals like right together on your board so you can use your big ass foot to hit all 3 of them at once. I've done this. We've all done this. At some point, we've all tried to attempt this.
Right. So this thing allows me I can turn them on and off individually if I want, but it allows me to set a patch to go turn all these things on at once, turn all these things off at once, which is cool.
Yeah. I mean, that's really the benefit for modeling for me. I mean, obviously the studio application is that you can have all these sounds at your fingertips. Knowing how to use them, knowing what's a good sound. And we'll talk about that in a minute.
That's our next topic.
Let's go ahead and segue. So I got the Helix. I don't have the G system. And I run 4 cable with mine. Actually, I run 5 or 6 cables in some cases because I'm running, I'm switching my amp with the Helix. I'm doing other things that go along with it.
I'd be switching too.
I'm typically a rock player, like more of a bluesy rock player. Think Jimi Hendrix and that kind of stuff. And as I start to play other styles of music and things, I suddenly realized that I've been playing a lot of metal lately. I don't know how to make a good metal tone, and it's kind of embarrassing. And I'm slowly easing my way into understanding what makes up a good metal tone.
Now, while you've been saying this, I've been looking because for those who don't know, Dan Kish is sitting here actually watching.
Yeah, he's rolling his eyes at me, I'm sure.
And I'm sure he's rolling his eyes right now going, yeah, Dave, you don't know metal.
Yeah, no, he has his shit together. I'll tell you that right now. So for those of you who don't know, if you're in the Patreon, we have a live studio audience.
Yes.
You can always reach out to us. We'll get you on the show so you can watch if you're in the Patreon. Right. It costs as little as $1. So if you really want to support the show, and if you like watching and you think you'd like to watch this as it's being recorded, for sure, join the Patreon for $1.
And you get the pre-show stuff.
And the post-show, because we always banter for 10 minutes afterwards. The main thing is in thinking about other genres.
Yep.
I don't know that I could tweak my Helix to sound like a jazz amp.
Right.
I don't know that I could tweak my Helix to do. I'm trying to think like other like roots rock sounds. Those just aren't my thing. Like I kind of know if I'm doing a roots rock thing, like I want like a Fender Champ, kind of thing. But I don't necessarily know like where I'd set it.
Right.
And what kind of microphone I'd want to use in front of it. And like all those questions, they're easy enough to answer. Go find a tone on a record you like, play the Helix along with it, tweak it until it sounds the same, and walk away. But if you're looking for your own sound, that's where things become difficult. And I'm kind of like feeling around for like what my metal sound I want it to be. And I have a lot of options in the Helix, and there's some option paralysis there for sure. But I think the thing I've discovered most is, at least for the metal sounds in the Helix, get some IRs.
So you were going to talk about some of those IRs things.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about them all tonight, but we're going to start talking about IRs a little bit because it's a new hot thing. Everybody's using them. There's tons of products out there that are IR enabled. What I discovered today though is I was trying to get a dual rectifier patch going, and I was also trying to get a Mark IV patch going that I really liked because I got a couple of them, and they're realistic. They match my Mark II or my Mark II. I wish I had a Mark II. They match my Mark V in Mark IV mode, and do a pretty good job of that until you get to the cabinet model. And that's where I suddenly realized I was just playing around with the inbuilt cabinets for doing it. And they have a lot of low mids. They don't have a lot of top end, and the bass is overinflated on a lot of them. Yeah. So what I started doing was using some IRs from, actually it was free IRs I got from Ownhammer. Their Mesa slant cab IR with V60s, which are Celestion vintage 30s basically, it's really good. I highly recommend it. They give you a bunch of different sound samples. I mean, it's a fully enabled IR situation where you get here's how, with an inch away, and here's with 2 inches away, and then, different microphone choices. And then they have some mixed together. So they have a modern one, which would be good for modern metal. And I just played around with a bunch of different ones until I found the ones I liked. And I was A/Bing them with the inbuilt Helix cabs, and I definitely think for that style of music, it would be really difficult for me to tweak the inbuilt Helix cabs to sound like that. They're high quality. They sound good. I mean, IRs in general are going to sound really good, and that's what the Helix inbuilt cabinets are based on, but they've been tweaked. And I think they're more well-produced IRs in the sense that these are supposed to be just turn them on and not really have to do a whole lot to make them sound right. But at the same time, they're overinflated in some ways. And so I wonder if the studio environment where they're putting these together is not optimal or something that's causing that. But we were talking about the Helix today, and actually this is really the big discussion part I want to bring into play here. And you can go back and forth about this. But the Helix for me, I have a love-hate relationship with it. I bought it. I obviously had a big analog.
I want people to know that 1 minute he's going to sell it, the next minute he's sleeping with it. So
I have a big analog rig. I had one, right? And I sold it to get my Helix. And if you're not a long-time listener to the show, you might not know that. When we started the show, I had this giant freaking pedal board that wouldn't fit in the trunk of my car. It had 8 Boss pedals on it, and it had an ES8, and it had I had the Ethos Overdrive on there, and 2 Chase Bliss pedals. Actually, I went down from the Ethos to the Brothers, and I had a MIDI switcher for interfacing with it. It was a nightmare rig, right? And I finally just said, there's this new pedal I want, and I stopped myself and I said, what the hell am I doing? How many pedals can I possibly stick on this damn board? And that's when I realized, I'm carrying around a board that's now half the size of the giant one that used to not be able to fit in my car, but I still have 13 pedals on it. And I'm going, this is a logistical nightmare. So I sold all the stuff that I didn't want to keep, and I bought a Helix, and it was literally a straight trade. I didn't really buy anything. I traded.
Yep.
And took the Helix home, and I liked it a lot at first, and I was doing some A/B testing with my existing amps, and I felt like this is a very realistic simulator, and it does a lot of things that are kind of right up my alley. It does some, great recording functionality. It has every in and out known to man on it.
Yep.
They may not be the best, but they're there. And I was happy with it for the first 3 or 4 months. Then this anxiety set in, right? And I'm like, I know that I only really need like 3 or 4 sounds. So why am I using this modeler that has like 300 or 400 sounds, and start to kind of second guess myself, and was thinking like I could go back to a really simple analog rig with like 2 amps, 2 cabinets, switch between them based on the venue, and then have like, a really simple pedal board with like a boost, a fuzz, and like maybe a modulation pedal and a wah.
Yep.
And, of course, tuner and that kind of stuff. So go down like 5 or 6 pedals on a board, single power supply, just basically simple, minimal analog rig. And the more I like tinkered with this idea, the more I started thinking like, I got this fantastic board right here it's all self-contained. There's not a whole lot I have to do with it. I just have to figure out how to use it. So I spent a couple weeks kind of tossing this notion back and forth of selling my Helix and getting a 6505 and a cabinet. And ultimately what I decided, at least for now, is I'm going to keep the Helix. I'm probably going to keep it at least a year. I'm going to start approaching the Helix from a totally different way. And that is that I've always looked at the Helix as like, how can I make this thing sound like the real deal? Like the real things that are out there in existence. And now I'm starting to backtrack from that. And I'm going, how can I use the Helix to get cool sounds, like really good sounds that I can use, but don't necessarily have to be real sounds? Because I think the Helix can actually do better than reality. In the sense that you can get these idealized things that you can't get in the real world by doing studio trickery effects that you can't do on a stage. Like, for example, putting a compressor post-amp. And I'm not talking post-preamp. I'm talking post-amp. So that my rhythm sound and my lead sound hit the exact same volume. And doing things that are just wildly crazy with switching. I'll hit a stomp switch, and the gain of my amp is going to dial back, and the treble is going to dial back so I can get a rhythm tone. And then I'm going to have, a delay kick in when I hit my lead switch, and maybe a fuzz comes on. It's only going to be panned on the right side. Like I can explore the stuff that you can't really do.
That's right.
Without a super complicated, like Bradshaw style rig. And what I'm really getting at here is that with these new ideas comes a lot of creativity that I've been stifling by saying, well, you can't do it in real life. Why would I want to do that? And
but actually you can. And that's the thing. Right. But it would take a ton of work.
Yeah.
A ton of things. And that's what I'm saying. So let's take and we were talking about this earlier today about live versus a rig where so we were talking about how it's so much easier to be the only guitar player in a band, right? I mean, you're the only guitar player in a band, and you're the only melodic instrument in the band. In other words, you don't have a keyboard as well. And it's a whole lot easier because now all that sonic space that you want to fill is
you
all
get to fill it.
It's all yours. Pretty much you're competing with a little bit of the strings, the higher strings on the bass, and some of the snare and a couple of toms every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, that's all yours, right? That's a huge amount. Take a guy like me, I'm going out to play, and I got to compete with a keyboard, right? And I got to compete with a bass player who, tends to play up on the strings a little bit. Because the old way of doing bass wasn't always playing on the big, thick strings, folks. Sometimes they played up on the, on the 7th fret and above. Can you believe that?
You mean John Entwistle actually knew there was an area above the 12th fret?
What?
Yeah, you don't listen to some Entwistle.
Exactly. So there was a reason they called his typewriter typewriter style. So, anyway, what I was getting at is when you're live. Let's say you're in what you just talked about. A great example was putting a compressor post speaker, post the whole thing. Well, that's usually a sound man's job, right? I mean, the person at the soundboard is going to have you mic'd up or have you whatever going into here now, pressing on your thing, and then you don't have any control of it. That's all there.
Yeah.
Where now you can control it. But
well, you can control it to the point that you don't. So, like when you go into a live venue and you're having live sound run for you, and there's some guy like taking care of that stuff. And we have members of our group who obviously have done this before. You have control over it to a point because they might be applying stuff too because they assume, oh, well, he's not doing that. So you have to have good communication.
That's what I was just going to say. You talk to them. But anyway, the point I was about to make is that typically, and that's what I was going to say, if you don't communicate with that person, then you're also going to have the same problem. And you might get overly compressed. But when you come out of those big speakers, and I mean, and I've done these venues where I'm coming out of a 100,000 watt system, right? I mean, we're talking about speakers that are hanging from the ceiling, 18 feet. You know, they're just a row of like 40 12 watt or 15 watt speakers, and then there's like, you know, all these 18 inch or 15 inch speakers and 18 inch speakers that are underneath the
subs
stage and all this other stuff. And when you hit a note that you're used to having, like just go, it goes boom. It's like,
it's a little bit of shock the first time it happens because you're like,
because you're standing there doing sound check and it's like ting ting blam.
What do you mean? What do you mean? I just grazed that string.
And all I did was, oh my god, I had
blow
no
out
idea.
the windows in the parking lot. You know?
Yeah, I had no idea. It's so much string noise and stuff. And when you do that for the first time, you get to that position. Even if you're playing in a club, let's say the Malmsteen club that you saw him.
Yeah, Arcada.
It wasn't Malmsteen because obviously he had a wall of stuff.
He's only using 4, but
they're going to have a dozen 12 or 15 inch speakers on the side, and they're going to have a whole row of subs down in front of you or down underneath of you that you're going to feel. And that first time you hit that low E, and you hear that thing go boom, and it just plows out. You're going to find out that all those little things you thought, oh, I can put up with that. I can put up with that. I can put up with that. They get mic'd up.
They become a big problem.
They become huge. And what you were just talking about is a huge thing in the way of getting towards that, where, you know, it's a completely different thing. It's one thing to play, and I know I bang on these YouTubers all the time, and there's nothing wrong with these are excellent.
Your bedroom is a whole different venue.
But when you're blasting it at literally
ear-splitting volumes,
stage volume.
If you don't need to use earplugs at home, you're not doing it right.
Yeah, because the person that is sitting at the back of these rows, I mean, I showed somebody a video of me playing at a gig, and I said, can you see the last person there? They said, no. I said, neither could I. That was how far away they were. And my stuff was coming through amps. I was just whoosh.
Yeah, just trying to rip it.
Were you wearing earbuds or ear? Were you wearing ear protection? I said, no. That was so loud and it sounded so awesome. I stepped off that stage and was walking out into the crowd so I could feel, oh, that's me. Oh my God, it sounds so good. And, I had played a lot of those where I was kind of stuck on the stage, but this one I got to go out there. There was there were a few thousand people.
Yeah.
And so, when you do that and you do that for the first time and you've done that, a few times after that, suddenly you realize that all those little things, the microphonics of a tube pickup and of a tube of, or the little bit of shh you've got that's coming out there. Now instead of just shh, it's shh, and it's like, ear splitting crap. And so
that's why people that play those venues aren't using junk. And they have a decently set up guitar. It's not because they're experienced. It's because if you don't do it, you're going to have white noise and garbage and everything else broadcast out to 3,000 people.
Have you ever heard a badly tuned guitar at like 10,000 watts or whatever?
Yeah, it's abysmal.
It sounds horrendous. If you think that those tones are knocking against each other at 20 watts in your bedroom or 15 watts in your bedroom,
It's not.
think about it at 114 decibels or 120 decibels out, in a stage. And like I said, you're reaching a person that's 100, it's 100 yards or more away from you, and you're trying to fill these venues and outdoor venues, which is what I was describing earlier. They're even worse. It's you've got to have the volume right. And even then, you're losing it. By the time you reach the people in the front row, you have no idea how much volume you lost to the air by the time you get to the first people that are like 18, 20 feet away from you.
Yeah.
Oh.
But the Helix, so the way it solves these problems, it gives you control over things, right?
Yep.
And you could theoretically even set up patches where, you have a foot switch that will kill the compression or kill the EQ or kill the delay, depending on what's going on in the room, or can engage a gate and all those different things that may be useful for just cleaning up your audio so it doesn't sound terrible. But my thing, Jim, has been that a lot of guys are using the Helix. They're going straight into a PA system. The majority of my dates are going to be small bars and things like this. And so for me, I really have to have something that's more amp-like that I can stick behind me that'll actually carry the room and also give me something to monitor with. So I'm looking at all these different products. This has been my quest, is like to find the right wedge, PA setup, FR speaker. It's all the same shit. But actually, let's back up for a minute. So as I get into this conversation, you're going to hear the term FR used by me a lot. I'm talking about flat response, full range. I am not talking about FR guitar speakers because it's bullshit. It's the same thing as you're going to get out of a PA cabinet. And don't let anybody tell you different. It might be tweaked. It might have a little less highs in it. Or if you're Friedman, they put so many fucking mids in it, you can't tell it's a PA speaker anymore. But in actuality, what you're getting is a full range, flat response speaker, which is, for lack of a better term, PA speaker.
I think you should explain what flat response means, because I think that's a
studio thing, right?
Gets thrown around that people are like, "What the hell does flat response mean?"
All right, let's take it back. All right, so let's talk about FR and what that actually means. Flat response. Not talking about full range is part of it. So your guitar speakers cut off. They don't really have a whole lot of frequencies above about 6K. They tend to, if you look at a frequency response curve, you'll see they drop off 6K pretty significantly.
A lot.
A full range speaker, it's going to have a lot more content past 6K, and they might go below 80 hertz. They might go down to 20 hertz. A frequency that's more felt than heard. And so the reason why this becomes important is in the studio environment. Your mission as a mix engineer, or anybody who's just recording, is to provide a flat sound. In other words, a sound just like what you heard in the room initially before the mix process. And so in order for you to do this, you have to have, and this is all about mix translatability. If let's say I take my car speakers, right? My shitty car speakers, because they have a huge, like, mid dip, usually right in the middle of the frequency response. This is true of home stereo equipment as well. And that's to make them sound big, right? So they're really cool sounding.
Yeah.
But if you're mixing for these things, that's the last thing you want. You want flat response so that your mixes will translate over the widest variety of possible systems. So you want to be mixing neutral. That's kind of the idea, is that like you mix this neutral, so then you can put this into something with a lot of bass and it'll sound fine. And if you put in something that has no bass, it'll sound fine too.
Yep.
And of course there's phasing and stuff that goes on there. That's all a big part of that process. But the point is that these flat response systems started out as studio monitors. That was the idea. Like a studio monitor was supposed to be a speaker that's not hyped up in the bass. It's not hyped up in the treble. It doesn't have exaggerated mids. It's supposed to be a pretty neutral sounding speaker. It's very similar to a lot of different ones. Not all of these speakers are created equally. Obviously, every studio monitor is different. Speakers are not perfect. You cannot have an actual flat response system. It's just never going to happen. You can get close. You can buy really expensive stuff to get you as close as possible and make it really, really good sounding across a wide range of systems. But ultimately, you're still going to be fighting the room, and you're still going to be fighting the fact that the speakers are limited in what they can. So, for example, you might not get past 20 hertz, and you might not get past 9,000 or 11,000 hertz on the upper end of the spectrum. Can you hear past 11,000? Some people can. The older you are, probably the less likely you can. But I've been watching some videos where people are suggesting that you can listen to those things, and even if you can't hear those frequencies, you can guess that they're there, and you can still mix for them, which is pretty impressive. But as this applies to guitar, the idea is that when you're using a modeler, your modeler includes a speaker cabinet model that you can use, and it usually includes actually they almost always include a microphone model as part of the speaker modeler thing. So what this is simulating is a mic'd up guitar sound, which is what you hear on every record, and what you hear in most live mixes is a mic'd up guitar sound. And so what this allows you to do is to basically have that mic'd up guitar sound on stage instead of the unmic'd signal coming out of a cabinet at you. For a lot of people, that's a problem because they're used to hearing that actual raw cabinet sound. For me, I don't think it's as big a deal for me. But what the FR allows you to do is to completely neutrally, as neutral as physically possible, given the dimensions of cab and how it's designed, produce the sound directly from the modeler in the most neutral way possible. So this is how your modeler sounds without a speaker in the between. That's the idea. Right. So these systems are in their infancy, that the ones that are specific for guitar. A lot of people are saying it's mostly a marketing thing, and I tend to agree with them. However, I've been watching some demonstrations the last couple of days where they're taking some of these cabs and they're comparing them to each other, and they're not created equal. They're very vastly different. For example, the Friedman system, I think, is the most overpriced piece of garbage I've seen in a long time. Their idea is, well, we want our cabinet to sound more like an actual cabinet without a speaker model and a microphone in front of it. And the way they achieve that is by basically just trumping up the mids. And you can hear it. I mean, you can compare it to like the Power Cab or the Mission Engineering cabinet thing, and it literally just sounds like they just put a big high and low pass on it, and a lot of mids. And you can also hear the differences between using like an alto PA cab and using, say, Power Cab or something like that. Now, I have experience with Power Cab. I've tried it out. I don't know that it was set up correctly, but it sounded like ass to me. I bought a PA cab a while back and I returned it because it's the first thing that I can remember returning because I was like, this is absolute garbage. Where I don't know that was really necessarily a problem with the product or if that was a problem with the Helix and the way that it uses its outputs. So this is something I'm going to explore. I'm really interested to see what I can do with FR that doesn't have me conspiring with a sound guy, because a lot of the clubs I play don't have sound guys. It's me.
Right.
So the whole idea would be to be able to go in and just set this PA cab on the floor and just rock and roll.
Tell the sound person to set you at neutral and go from there. Yeah.
And maybe run a line out from there to the, from the cat, either the cat. Well, I can really just run direct out of the Helix. And that was what we were talking about today is like, well, yeah, I can run 4 cable with my Mark V, but the problem there is if I want to do certain things with it, then I can't really run a direct out. And so there's some compromises made from the direct out from the Helix. Or if I do, I have to run it direct out with an IR. I mean, it gets really convoluted really fast. Yep. And it's one of these things where you got to have it set up for the venue when you get there. So you really need to know what you're dealing with before it ever happens.
And this is where I think some of the things that you mentioned, some of the limitations are going to be addressed once they start integrating a new Helix, which I don't know, that'd probably be a few years down the road. But still,
I think Helix 2 is probably going to be in 2023.
Yeah, I was going to say about 3 or 4 years down the road, and at that point you'll have more processing because they've got to wait until they got to wait until there's a reason to market it, right? So you're going to need more powerful processors. You're going to need some of the things that you want to do that aren't being able to be, that you can't do yet, that would be
I
there.
honestly don't see them really pushing the software in a different direction. I think
No.
Helix 2 will be very much like, here's the Helix with an extra path kind of deal.
That's what I was going to say. Giving you the ability to do more paths, to have more stuff. I mean, you really don't need more effects. I mean, how many effects can you put in the chain?
Depends on what kind of effects you're putting in there. I mean, sky's the limit, really.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be, I think it's like 8 or 12 per path. But the thing is, you can have multiple paths, and then you can do A/B paths, and you can combine the two paths that exist in the system. So, because there's one path per processor, right? And then you can route them so that path A goes into path B, or you can have subpaths where you have parallel routing and stuff. It's extremely flexible. And there's this guy that's done this monster path thing where you can have 2 amps going with a separate chain of effects for each amp, plus a shared chain, and then like stereo effects after. It's literally mind-boggling. It's
right. And so, I mean, when you think about what the Helix can do, and it has incredible capabilities. I mean, I know the limitations that you were mentioned for incredible piece of equipment, especially in the price range. When you think about that price range, those who are looking at Axe-Fx or Kemper, Kemper is not meant to be that. I'm thinking more Axe-Fx. And people who look at a Kemper and go, I should get a Kemper, realize what a Kemper is. It is not what a Helix.
Price for what you get, this thing slays the Axe-Fx. Yeah. It does.
Yeah.
For what you get. You know what I mean?
For what you get.
And there are competitive products from other manufacturers like Boss and the
Boss
company that makes the head rush.
Yep. What does Boss make? The M1?
No, it's the GT1000.
GT1000.
And they also have the GT1, which is like a budget beginner version of the GT100.
GT1000.
And it's a cool modeler too for like what it costs. It's like $200.
Yep.
It's tiny. You can throw it in your gig bag, and it has cabinet modeling and amp models and effects models, and it sounds great.
Yep. So what I wanted to look at is that when you get up at a stage, and this is the unfortunate reality that we all have to deal with. So what you sound like on stage is not what you sound like 10 feet away from the stage.
No.
And it's not what you sound like at 20 feet, 50 feet, or 100 feet. And you can sit there and talk about how, the acoustics in the room and this, that, and the other thing all day long, because there are going to be acoustics in the room. As soon as you put bodies in there, the acoustics.
Yeah, I mean, bodies, what the room is made out of, whether they've got new drink machines in the back. I mean, it gets ridiculous.
Whether or not they have windows, where the windows are in relation to the speaker positions, where you're standing in relation to.
Yeah, I mean, if they have you put up the PA in a different place the next time you play the club, it's going to be totally different.
Absolutely. And so when you look at all these things that these incredible things that you have to deal with when you go to a place, then you get outdoors and you think, oh, well, outdoors is outdoors. What if it's a windy day? What direction is the wind blowing? Believe it or not, this all makes a difference.
Yeah, the funniest thing about outdoors is you think it's going to be you're not neutral. You think it's going to be like, oh, well, I'm going to lose all my bass because there's nowhere for it to reverberate. But it's pretty damn neutral.
Yep, it is. And the only thing you have to worry about is, there are levels of humidity change it.
Yeah.
But indoor stuff is really, remember, humans are made of what? They're made of water.
Water.
So it's like you filled the place with jugs of water. Yep. It's really that's really what you've done.
Sacks of meat.
You got big wet sacks of meat. And so these things, what do they do to highs and to mid ranges?
They absorb it all.
Boom, just like that. It's like a dead end. And that's why you put speakers high. Why? Because if you put them low, they're gonna hit the people in the front. They're like, oh, this is so loud. 2 people behind them can't hear it at all. Literally can't hear it at all. I had a bass player who would walk in front of my amp cabinet on stage, and I wouldn't be able to hear the amp cabinet at all with him standing there.
Yep.
And he's like, whoa, it's so loud. I'm like, I can't hear it at all.
No, he's not. Get the fuck out of the way.
If you were standing away from it, it would be awesome.
That's why you need
but-
the plexi. Just be like, fuck it. I'll get used to hearing it quiet.
Yeah, I'll get that mother. But anyway, I'll fill it full of Swiss cheese, Sonic Swiss cheese. But no, but so all these things get taken into account, and people who do this stuff for a living, they set up Sonic sound for churches or for venues and different things like that. My hats is off to them. My hat is off to them because they do so.
It's a hard job.
It is.
People give sound guys such shit too.
Yeah.
And it's like, look, sometimes you don't realize how difficult that actually is. If you put yourself in their shoes, a lot of times when you have shit sound, it's not their fault.
Nope. They're not out there turning that magical suck button up. Yeah. That they're out there trying to do their best. Because remember, it's a reflection of them too.
Yeah, they don't want you to sound like ass.
Right. Because if you sound like ass, then you go, hey, man, I had that sound man, you sound like ass. And then they don't want to hire you. So yeah, I get it. And so when you think about what am I doing and what am I doing on stage, how big is my audience, how many people are, and what exactly am I trying to get across? Because it's all about the thing that we've talked about before. It's all about the art, right? It is all about we are painters, and every time we strum the guitar, it's brush stroke.
Yep.
And I don't know if I can.
That's pure poetry.
Yeah.
If I didn't know you were so full of shit, I would give you a Pulitzer right now.
In Pulitzer. Not to stay on the high horse. So when you go to a place and you work with the sound person and you folks are making your meeting and getting together, it's a good idea to talk. Now, I won't say that there aren't dickhead sound people because they exist. They're tired of their job. There's that person in every job I've ever seen, whether you're in IT or you're
they just don't like your music and they're like, I don't give a fuck what you sound like.
Yeah. I don't like metal music. You guys suck. So the first thing they're like, you know what? I'm not even going to put any real effort into that.
Well, I think more often than not, it's the people that come in with the shitty amps and the shitty live rigs. They're like, why would I care? At this point, you don't care, clearly. So why would I?
When you walk in with a Line 6 Spider 5, 75 watt. I've been gigging with this for a long time. Where?
That doesn't make it good.
Where? In your garage?
Yeah. That's not a gig. That's like a hangout.
I've been so bad at the Line 6 Spider.
That's just because you got a Katana now.
No, it's because of that whole FR
fanboy.
Oh my God. No, I'm not a Katana fanboy. Okay, so people probably wonder, why did you buy a Katana 100? You got a 1x12. You could have used a 50 watt. Matter of fact, I use this pretty much 50 watt setting.
See, a long time ago, Jim decided that he was going to play guitar.
Yeah.
And that eventually led to him buying a Katana.
Yeah. 50 years later. No, 47 years later. So when I decided to get the 100 watt, it's because I actually wanted a 50 watt. I didn't want the 100 watt. That's true. I was like, man, I only need 2 channels. I need it to be dirty. I need it to be clean. And I was like, man, whatever. But the reason I got the 100 is because there's no effects loop in the 50. Here's boss. If you want to sell a few more 50s, actually, they probably want to sell more 100s while they're doing it. But if you want to sell a few more 50s, put an effects loop in that thing and give away the 2-button switch. Come on. We talked about that today. $120 for that switch, the GAFC. And they're on back order.
Yeah. Oh, they are on back order again? I'm sorry,
they're on. Ridiculous. But anyway,
that's because the only thing they're making money out of that package is the GAFC.
The GAFC, exactly. But the GAFC doesn't work with the 50. It works with the 100.
Right, correct.
Give away the 2-button switch. Come on, these 2-button switches are giveaway. I mean, I got to admit, the Katana is well priced. What is it, $259?
Yeah.
Something like that. Well priced. Those who know, because I said to David, didn't the price on those go up?
I think it went up about $50.
Yeah,
if it hasn't, it will go up about $50 because
the import fees,
the import taxes have caused a hike in a lot of gear. Lots of things that come out of China,
right? And even if I didn't want the effects send and return, I need the line out. not to deaden the speaker. Because if I want to use this on the stage as my monitor, I don't want that to kill the speaker when I go out to the board. And unfortunately, on the 50, all you've got is record out. Now I got to ask you, because you've done this already, and I haven't done it on this one. When you said there's 3 IRs built into this?
Yes, there's a modern,
Yep.
there is a vintage, and there's a deep.
Okay,
IR.
so
Three
a
different
Mesa,
Pretty much a
Marshall,
Mesa,
Fender.
a Mesa, a Marshall. I don't think the other one's a Fender. I think it's like a greenback loaded 4x12.
Okay.
Sounds like to me.
Now, does that go out on the
USB, and I think it also goes out in the regular line out. I don't think
I
the
was gonna
regular
say.
line. I think the regular line out is cab emulated only. I
Yeah.
may not be right on that, but I think it is.
I would think it would have to be.
The,
The line
so
out
if you
would
want to
have-
use it and with an IR, you have to go out of the return
Yep.
or the send
Yeah.
into your DAW.
Yep.
I think that's what I
Yeah.
did when I did that video.
And
Yeah.
so for those who haven't done this, so you don't want to send an emulated signal to an IR.
No.
Because then you're miking an amp to mic an amp. That doesn't make any sense.
Right, which really kills me because Mesa wants to send out like their cab clone. There's no bypass. You have
Yeah.
to use one of their cab EQ things there.
Yep.
And that sucks. Because what if you want to use a 2-note? And
Right.
let's be honest, the cab clone is not good, people. I
Yeah.
know.
Is that the
people love it.
torpedo? The 2 notes torpedo?
Yeah. The cab clone, look, it's a good product for live because it gives you an option to go direct from the amp. Don't use it in the studio. It doesn't sound that good. I mean, it's usable, but it's very generic sounding. It doesn't really sound that good.
No. So we got a couple more things. Again, don't forget that our email address is
Questions at Practical.
practicalguitarist.com.
Don't like us? Send us some hate mail.
That's right. And we would appreciate it. So all right. I had another thing. So a person in the group asked recommendations for 3 pedals, and we gave our recommendations. Eric Bailey. We don't want to really go into what Eric's looking for, because if you want to look for it, it's in the group. But here's the thing that I put in there, and I think that everybody should preface, which is why I always wonder why all of a sudden people are throwing shade and throwing hate at folks when they make a recommendation. I recommend this. Okay. Whether you think it's a good recommendation or not. Like if somebody said, I was in a Guitar Zoom community, and I said, somebody was saying, should I get a Boss Katana or should I get a Line 6 Spider? And I wrote, if you want a bazillion effects and you're playing in your bedroom and you're not playing out, the Spider's great. It's fine. If you like this tone of Spider, use it. But if you're playing gigs, I don't recommend it. That's all I wrote. I don't recommend it. And this person slammed on, you probably don't know how to tune or record or program a Spider, and you know that there's all these effects. And I go, I said there was a billion effects, and I didn't say there wasn't. I just said I wouldn't gig with it, because here's the problem that and it goes back to what David was speaking about with the speaker. An FR speaker, and I'm not saying that that's what the Spider has, but the Spider does have.
It is a more neutral speaker. It's not a guitar speaker per se.
Right. So it has a full range speaker. Now, what that comes down to is this is why a lot of these modeling amps don't work well in a band situation. When you take a guitar speaker, everybody's like, oh, it's because a tube amp is this much better. There are things about tube amp that make them better. But the thing is that if you have a full range speaker, this is like taking your boom box, sitting it down next to the drummer, and cranking your guitar through it. That's what you've done.
Yeah. You're not going to get that much volume, frankly.
Yeah, you will never hit those things the way you should, because that speaker is made to do too much, and it doesn't do what a guitar.
Make your guitar sound like ass,
right?
And not just quiet, but just make it sound like ass.
Because you'll have to turn up, and as you get towards the top end of those, take your home speaker I don't care what home speaker system.
Don't do what Jim says because you're just gonna blow out your speaker.
Unless you got
take our word for it.
Unless you got a Polk audio or something like that, start tuning it up. At some point, that thing's going to start breaking up. It's just going to sound like it sounded great when you were watching Star Wars earlier today at 4.5 or 7.
A third of the volume on your sound system.
But when you start cranking it all the way up, all of a sudden, your 1,000 watt, it's 1,000 watts. This thing should sound awesome. And it sounds like total.
How many ohms and what's the dB sensitivity?
Yeah, we talked about that earlier this week about ohms and speakers.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of why I thought you blew something up. But anyway, no,
I did not.
I hope not. No, so I mean,
my name's not Ryan. What are you talking
about? Wow, now we're throwing shade.
Wow.
Ryan, if you're listening to this,
wait,
yeah, I actually sucks that you couldn't fix your Katana. Right? I was kind of hoping that you'd be able to do it because I'd feel like, hey, this thing is actually repairable.
Did he get the chip or whatever?
He wasn't able to get the existing one out. So, it's a pain in the ass to get out. But anyway, what I wanted to say was that speakers are made for different applications. And guitar loudspeakers are actually made for like a really focused set of frequencies. Remember we talked about how they tend to have a more narrow band than a full range speaker system. And so your home audio stuff is more like a full range in the sense that it has like a wider set of frequencies, but it's not flat. And so it's not going to sound great if you ran guitar through it just directly. But the funny thing is, I forget how we got on this subject originally, but like your PA speakers are nothing like that. They are completely different. They can reproduce a guitar signal and make it sound halfway decent.
So anyway, that's what I was getting at. So it's kind of like putting your boombox up again. But the point that I was getting at is that when somebody makes a recommendation, like I said to Eric, I recommend this and I recommend this, but remember, I'm using humbuckers primarily.
Yeah.
And I'm playing in a variety band, so this is what works for me.
Right.
And I didn't say to him, but if you were playing blues, you should get this, and you were playing metal, because I don't know that stuff. I play in a variety band. I play pop music. I'm a pop musician.
So he posted a picture of his board first. And so my recommendations, like this is how I approached it. I looked at what he already had and I kind of made some inferences about what he's doing based on that. And then based on the things that he was already looking at.
Right.
And then I was like, okay, I know kind of where you're headed, I think. And this is what I would recommend.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, they're just recommendations. Nothing. I think that
nobody said your gear sucks. And I'm not saying in this specific instance, but I guarantee you've seen somebody post like, what amp should I get? And then there's all these people like Matchless Chieftain. No, there's all these people that say things that are...
As many people who recommend Matchless Chieftains actually
had Matchless Chieftains, they wouldn't have gone bankrupt in the first place.
Those guys would have millions and millions of dollars. And
that company's been bankrupt twice. Twice.
All these people, I love people who recommend, stuff they've never owned.
My Sweetwater rep is big on Matchless.
Can't afford it.
Got one, but
because he has,
and they are cool amps.
Yeah.
Bulgara V22 is a Matchless clone.
I definitely didn't say anything bad about Matchless. That's for sure.
No. I'm just saying that like people tend to make recommendations, and oftentimes they're making recommendations about shit they don't even own.
Right, or they've never owned.
Yeah, or never even like had an experience of. Like, I've heard this is cool, so I'll just recommend this to you.
Right. And
it's
so
I'm only going to recommend shit that I've tried,
Right. Like when I say to somebody, I wouldn't buy a Fender DeVille for this, or this. It's because I know the Fender DeVille. I owned one for 15 years. Yeah. I used it almost primarily. And believe me, I had my headaches with it. I had a lot of headaches. But
an amp that loud will do that to you.
Yeah. Ooh. But anyway,
But why don't you just get a super reverb instead?
When somebody makes a recommendation, it's not like they're saying you suck and I'm right. It's just this is what I did and this is how I worked through it. And you should. But I think that what's happening, we've talked about this before in YouTube. It's like you see this all the time. It's like how many Spider 5 videos that you've seen were of it being bad? Seriously, I mean, I'm not talking about the ones little kids did in their bedrooms. I'm talking about the ones that the Andertons or
I mean, and they usually have a line 6 rep there who's like, here's how you use it, because they're like, don't put the microphone there, like they're there to advise them on how to get the best sounds out of it.
That's right.
And it's not that you can get bad sounds out of it easily, but it's just that they know that it is easy to get a bad sound out of it if you don't know what you're doing or if you're careless. So they're like, it's an inexpensive amp, so we need to give it all the help we can to make sure that people know how to use it.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I don't think I've ever seen them do a Line 6 Spider 5 video or any of the Line 6 Spider series where they didn't have a
rep there.
Line 6 rep right
there. The Cab Clone from Mesa, when they did that video, originally they did it without a rep, and then they watched it and they were like, this thing sounds like shit. And so Mesa put a rep in their hands and said, this guy's going to show you how it's supposed to be done, because it was bad. Right, and honestly, even the rep video was bad.
You take I know, because I sent you that thing about the Cab Clone, and I hadn't remembered that until you said something about those.
Yeah.
So, here's the thing: you, as the individual, you are probably not going to get a rep from company X.
No, you might if you go to an event and try to meet up with them, but
yeah, and you can reach out to them on Facebook. People shouldn't act like these people don't put their pants on too freaking. One.
A lot of times they have a lot of pride in what they do,
and they want it to work out. I know
Frank from Line 6.
Yep, Frank from Line 6. He wants you to succeed. He's going to tell you, he's going to give you some recommendations, or at least point you to someone who can help you with your product. And so these are things that, don't be afraid to ask some questions. Don't be afraid, like I did with David this morning. Help! I felt so stupid. It was a simple thing.
Yeah, once you get, look. Asking for help is a lot harder than actually receiving it. Right. And then once you actually get that help, then you won't need it ever again. So the whole point is, like, ask for help. Don't hold off and pretend like, oh, I should know this, so I'm not going to ask. I'll just figure it out.
Everybody's going to
figure it out on your own is good. But if it's just a stupid technical problem like that, and you're scratching your head, call somebody, talk to somebody, call the helpline, reach out to people in the Facebook groups. So much gear has a Facebook group devoted to it now. It's almost stupid not to be a member of one if you're like invested in something. I'm invested in Helix. I'm in the Helix group. I'm invested in the Katana. I'm in the Katana group. I ordered a custom guitar that'll be showing up in a couple months. I'm in that group.
I will tell you. I'll tell you the truth. So this was a long time ago. It's like almost 40 years ago. My first technical question was the first time I actually put a Les Paul in my hand, and I went, "What do those knobs do?" Now,
I didn't know until I owned a Gibson. I'm not even afraid to admit it.
I was like, why does it have 4 knobs? Because I
knew what they did, but I was like, which ones are which?
Yeah. And which one? Yeah. So so fast forward to when I got my first PRS single cut.
Oh.
those who don't know, Paul does not care.
Wiring is different than Gibson wiring.
Paul does not care where Gibson puts their volumes and tone knobs. He puts them where he wants.
He literally doesn't give a shit.
So guess what? The volume knobs.
My guess is you use the tone knobs a lot more on that single cut.
Because one of the quote unquote tone knobs, a volume knob, and the other one. So when I first got it, I got my single cut. I did, I went to it was really hard because it was hard to get them back then. Yeah. So somebody put one up for sale. I was like, oh, I got to go get it. I got $2,000 in my pocket. I'm going to go 20, I think it was 2,200, 20, whatever it was. I go out, I meet this guy, we plug it in. It sounds great. I get it home. I go to the lead channel and it dies. I'm like, oh my God. And
what the hell is wrong with this
volume? I keep rolling the volume knob.
No, you keep rolling the tone
back.
I
was rolling the tone knob. I thought I was rolling the volume knob for the lead switch, but I was rolling a tone knob for the.
And the other thing is, like, you have that feeling of pure panic. You had the feeling of pure panic because you're like, I just spent $2,000 on this guitar and it doesn't work. and you're like,
Yep.
you're not even thinking about the fact it's like a 2-minute repair. You're just like, it doesn't work. Like you're crying.
Yeah,
like, oh man! And then 5 minutes later, it's fixed, right?
And so I posted in the PR one of the PRS forums. Oh my God, I can't. Somebody said, have you always owned Gibsons? I said, yeah. He goes, that's because you're rolling tone knob for the rhythm channel. Roll the
Jim, can I just say, there's 4 knobs. Try them all.
I didn't think to try them all. I was probably in my late 30s, early 40s. I had never played a Paul Reed Smith, so that's. I'm not making excuses.
But the guy's like, you didn't read the sticky, did you?
Moron. So yeah, but it wasn't new, so I didn't get a sticky.
No, I mean the sticky in the forum.
Oh yeah.
On the top of the forum, it's like Gibson owners, check your first.
There should have been something up at the top. And then I went to the guy actually pointed out, he was very nice because he could have called me a complete utter moron. He was very nice. He pointed me to the tech. Believe it or not, there's a tech manual. It's like a leaflet, a tech leaflet, I guess you could call it, a white page on the single cut. And he goes, here it is online, and linked me over to it. And sure enough, there it is. It says, yeah, there's a volume knob. But I didn't know that with PRS, you turn the volume down all the way, the same as a Gibson, and use it like a kill switch. So, yep, that was a enlightening thing. I won't tell you what I did wrong on my custom. But let's just say it's very similar.
Huh? What'd you say?
I said I won't tell you what I did wrong on my custom, but it was very similar. Yeah, that's the 3 switches. I didn't know that one of them was the control, because what PRS did was in the customs before they went to the blade switch.
Yeah,
there was a rolling. Yeah, and it looked like a tone knob, and it went click, 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 click.
Yeah, it's a
5-way plate
or whatever. It's a rheostat or whatever it is.
Yeah, it was the same idea. It was just wiring it to that. They thought it was a good idea. I think it was a good idea at the time, but you could never tell what position your blade switch was in, because you'd have to look and see, okay, where's the number line up to? Where's 0 supposed to be? Okay, that's because it used a tone knob with 10, or a volume knob, whatever, with 10 numbers on it, but you only had 0 through 5 that worked. It stopped at 5. So it was kind of weird. Let's just say I didn't know that you could have more than 3 positions on a humbucker. I was not a gearhead. I never was a gearhead. I want to plug it in and I want to use it, and I don't want to play with it like that. That was terrible.
I don't have anything to say. I just don't. I'm gonna keep it all to myself. We've all made mistakes. We all do dumb shit. Like, listen, it's a miracle I have not blown up an amp at this point, because I have plugged in a lot of shit through a lot of wrong places, especially on dark stages or in dark rooms, and you're not paying attention, and you're like, oh, that's got to be the speaker jack, right? You're like putting the cable in there, and then you're like, why is there no sound? And then you turn around, and you look, and you're like, oh, that's a direct out.
You ever put a 9-volt battery in backwards? Not recommended.
Pretty sure a lot of people have done that. I like to put them on my tongue. That's fun.
No, so we've got wireless mics that use a 9-volt battery.
Oh, and, I understand.
The bass player put his 9-volt battery in.
Enlighten the audience as to what that does, Jim.
Yeah, let's just say that when he screwed the end down that pops it in, it puts it in a reverse polarity, and that thing lit up. Pop!
Yeah.
Well, there went the microphone.
Yeah, don't do that. A lot of them have stopped using 9 volts now for that reason.
Yeah.
So it's a lot easier not to pop them, or they put a power protection circuit in them.
Yeah, I would imagine. I mean, it can't be too hard to have something that protects it from getting a reverse polarity.
Yeah, I mean, they do it all.
But I'll tell you, this will happen, guys, on your pedals too. If you put, most 9-volt pedals are negative pole. In other words, the centerpiece is
right. Well, And even then, like, I haven't fried anything, and I know I put them in backwards before.
Yeah, but most of them have a protection circuit now. But some of the older pedals, if you put if you have it wrong, you should always. It's pretty much now any pedal.
It's really hard to put a 9-volt battery in wrong because the way that the prong
right.
But if you wire the cable up backwards, then you're in trouble.
As long as there's that 9-volt that thing, the little leads on the end. I don't know what they call it.
The jack.
Yeah, the 9-volt jack. But if you've got just a slot to push the 9-volt in, then you lock it down. You got it in reverse polarity. That's what it's saying. But if you plug it in wrong, plug it in backwards. Oh, here's another thing. Let's talk about buffered pedals just for a second. Just for a second. So a buffered pedal, folks, a true bypass pedal and a buffered pedal. A buffered pedal, if it does not have power, you will not get signal through. If you have a true bypass pedal and you don't have power to it, it should truly bypass the circuit.
Yeah, and that's a generalization too, because there are
true bypass
pedals that will eat battery even when in the off position.
Yep.
As long as there's a cable plugged into it. So you just got to be real careful. Read your manual, figure it out.
Yep.
We are not going to say whether true bypass or
is better.
Bypass is better.
No, I won't say. Do whatever floats.
Whatever floats your boat.
Right.
Whatever works for you. Do we have any more topics, Jim?
Let's check. I have a lot of notes here.
Yeah, he's got like 3 pages worth of notes, folks, and I'm trying to keep this 2 hours. So,
and that's it. That was it.
Now we can just have hopeless banter for the next 10 minutes.
Well, so should we talk about how about this piece of banter? And we're going to stay out of the political side of it and just talk about the funny side of it. It has been rumored by I can't remember where I read about this, but it is actually a legitimately credible source that Roger Waters may go to the border and play The Wall. I just want to say,
everybody take a moment and think about that for a second.
If he leaves enough cardboard there, they could just build one.
Yeah.
You know what they should do is just have him do it all the way along the border, and he.
I think you should make a music festival out of it. I think you could have Living Color go down there and play Concrete and Steel.
Yep.
I could get really creative with this. I mean, I'm sure there are other people that talk about building things, erecting walls, and hey, Living Color would be perfect. They got that song Wall Between Us.
Yeah,
Almost Fall.
Kansas had The Wall.
They're a great band that would be a perfect fit for that. Kansas just doesn't have a southern border on the southern border of the United States, but it's close enough. They have some fallout from it.
Yeah, they could put a wall up around Kansas.
Yeah. I want a wall up around my house, frankly. I just don't like my neighbors.
You're not rich enough. See, the rich people have them.
Yeah, no shit, right?
They've already got them. They put walls up. You can't walk into their neighborhood.
Jim, I don't think we can talk about this anymore. Nothing is going to be decided here, so I'm just going to leave right now.
That's right. No.
Wait.
Let's keep going.
My house? What am I thinking?
We can't. That's I'm in my house. So what other kinds of interesting things? Oh, Eddie Trunk. Let's talk a little bit.
Let's talk about Eddie Trunk for a minute.
So what was it? Eddie Trunk is mad because
who's Eddie Trunk, Jim? I don't know who Eddie Trunk is.
If you ask Eddie Trunk is responsible for hard rock and heavy metal from around 1985.
Isn't he the fat fuck from MTV in the 80s that used to do Headbangers Ball?
Yes.
He's that fat fuck, huh?
Yeah.
I'm a fat fuck too, so
I'm one. So yeah, I'm a fat fuck.
Don't think for a second that I'm really being mean to him. I'm being mean to him because I think he's a pompous ass, and he thinks that he controls the music industry like an Ed Sullivan type. And Ed Sullivan didn't control the music industry either, folks.
I had to laugh because he was interviewing Geddy Lee, and he was talking about how Eddie Trunk, had created this whole buzz around how Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson might do something together. And he was like, "Oh, do you want to confirm this?" And of course, he was hoping to get something on his show. Geddy so well blew him off.
Yeah, he's. I don't know. Like, so for my generation, the reason why I introduced him the way that I did this. Apparently, Alexa was listening to me. Shut up.
Alexa, please kill Kenny.
Um,
Okay, I'll kill Kenny.
Wow, you did a really good impression. Anyway, what I was thinking was like my generation. I'm 33 right now, I believe.
Yep.
Don't go me on that. And my generation doesn't necessarily know who Eddie Trunk was because his show was off the air in like 89, the original show.
And then he had that metal show, which
anything for like 10 years or 15 years.
Yep.
I think he had a radio show or something in one small market. And then all of a sudden he's
New Jersey.
I'm back on VH1 and I'm like the head host of the metal show, which, by the way, I'm not watching for the hosts. I'm watching for the guests if I watch it at all. And I just feel like the guys he almost like looks back at his life and he's like, I wish I was special. I wish I was in a band. So now I'm going to make out like I was these bands and somehow like I influenced a generation of people and what they were going to listen to, what they didn't. And I really think there's a lot more emphasis put on the MTV generation actually watching MTV than there was. There's a lot of bands that are popular today that did not have big MTV careers.
Rush, Iron Maiden.
Good example. Iron Maiden is a great example because we talked about Iron Maiden before. I think we actually mentioned this on the show. Iron Maiden was like, they had a video for like every song going back to like the late 70s when they were doing the promotional videos for the record stores. Yep. And MTV, every time they do one, they're like, hey, how do we do this kind of thing? And they're like showing a retrospective. They talk about how they used to play Iron Maiden.
Yeah.
I have never seen outside of one of those shows an Iron Maiden video on MTV ever. I have talked to people who grew up in that age and they're like, no, I didn't know who Maiden was. Like, not from them.
I saw a video of Where Eagles Dare. That was the only video I ever saw of Iron Maidens on MTV before Headbangers Ball.
Yeah.
And even then, I only saw off Seventh Son of the Seventh Son, Can I Play with Madness?
Jim, can I ask you a question? How long was a Headbangers Ball episode?
Jeez, it was like an all-night thing.
Was it? Was it like a 3-hour, 4-hour thing?
Yeah. And yet Iron Maiden almost never got any play on it.
But here's the bigger question.
But guess what?
How often was Headbangers Ball? It was not every night.
No, it was like on weekends.
Yeah.
I want to say
stop and think about that for a minute. You created a genre based on your position in music, but you only did it 12 hours a week.
Well, okay, so he was an A&R guy. I don't know if you know that. He was an A&R.
Yeah, I know he was an A&R.
He signed Ace Frehley to his big solo career. Remember all those Ace Frehley?
Remember all those Ace Frehley albums that nobody bought?
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah. Jeez, that's my claim to fame. I signed up a contract for a guy who's already famous and did nothing.
That's right. Remember Jakey Lee's big solo albums that everybody owned?
Wait, which ones?
Yeah, exactly. They're out there.
I know they are. I have them.
Yeah. And yet he talked about Nitro like they didn't exist. He was like, yeah, there was this band Jim Gillette was in called Nitro. They didn't really. I was like, okay.
Yeah, whatever.
I guess because they weren't on your radar, Eddie.
I think his career was overinflated by the fact that he was on Headbangers Ball, and I think he's got a huge head. And I think not physically, but I think he's got a really he thinks he's something special, and he's not.
Because they know that he's got a radio show, and you've still got to promote. And he does have, it's a Sirius XM show, so unfortunately, they still have to talk to him. I mean, he's kind of like probably that cousin in the.
No, I'm not saying that the artist should feel any more or less respect towards him. I'm saying he needs to take it down a notch and start realizing that his career depends on these people.
That's exactly right. His career, his whole livelihood wouldn't exist if they didn't do the work. And that's the thing that I don't know. But anyway, so he was talking about Bohemian Rhapsody, which he's mostly a metal guy, right? So Bohemian Rhapsody,
the movie,
right? And he said, well, there's this Rocky Horror-esque interactive version that's going to come out for a limited run in limited theaters for fun for people that want to do the karaoke interact with the movie type thing. Now, let me tell you something. I grew up in the Rocky Horror Picture Show era. That was huge. It still
we talked about your cross-dressing.
Yeah, it still happens 20 minutes down the road from me. I probably won't be wearing, a teddy to it, but I'm going to take my kid so he can see what it's like, because we just added the Time Warp to our set list, so I want him to see it in action. Anyway, so we, I was remembering this, and I'm thinking that was one of the most fun things I did on weekends in my, late teens and early 20s, was to go to the Rocky Horror Picture Show and just have a blast with a bunch of people who were drunk, stoned, and otherwise out of their minds, and just have fun. You know how many people I've met and how many?
Oh, sure. And it's everybody. It's like all walks of life and stuff. And like, I get it.
Right. It was a blast. If you haven't done it, you should do it once.
Queen is the most, everybody sings Queen music. Like, don't act for a second like you can actually sing it.
Right.
But everybody, when they're driving in their car and they hear some, crazy little thing called Love or whatever coming on there, like, you're like, oh, yeah. Crazy
thing called Love. Yeah, everybody's doing it.
Everybody is.
Just relax.
You know what's really funny is when I drive down the road and like I see somebody like jamming away in their car, I'm always like trying to picture what Queen song are they singing.
Yeah.
Because it's a Queen song. Like you're just like sitting there like, yeah, I'll bet you that's Good Old Fashioned Lover Boy or something, something ridiculous like that. But I would go to that.
Yeah, me too.
So I don't know. And he's like, I think it's stupid.
Yeah, that sucks. And I that would ruin the movie for me. Well, nobody asked you to go.
Hey, Eddie Trunk.
Why don't you stay home?
Don't fucking like it. Buy it on DVD and watch it later.
Exactly. Let's go real metalhead, Eddie. And why don't you stay home and have some tea and watch?
I want to be grumpy and listen to Pantera while I don't put my pants on in the morning because I'm not a good person.
Yeah. Where
are my drugs?
People are having fun and they don't want to do what I want to do.
Those fuckers are having fun. I can't like them anymore.
I hate you because you enjoy yourself. You
know what Eddie Trunk needs? I figured it out, Jim. He needs a therapist.
He does hate a therapist.
He needs to hang out with Dave Mustaine's therapist.
Yeah.
I bet he could get him on the right track.
I'm telling you, man, it's just so
hey, I just realized something, Jim. Some kind of monster. That's not about Metallica.
It's about Dave Mustaine.
No. It's about Eddie Trunk, who must have created Metallica.
It's about Eddie Trunk. That's right. And as a matter of fact,
created Metallica.
Didn't at the end of the thing, the whole band said something like "Thanks to Eddie Trunk for our career."
Yeah, I think he's actually listed in the end credits.
Yeah, you guys should watch it all the way to the end credits. You'll see the part. You gotta watch all the way to the end where the band comes out and says, "We love you, Eddie Trunk. We thank you for everything that's ever happened in metal music to this day."
I'm sure they did. That just sounds like something every metal musician says to Eddie Trunk. I mean, Living Colour. They absolutely owe everything they do, even their ethnicity. They owe to Eddie Trunk.
The only person I ever saw actually kind of feel like he was kissing his butt was Scott Ian.
You know what? And Scott Ian is like the last guy.
It's the last guy.
To be honest with you, Scott Ian is so not metal.
Not metal.
Anthrax. Anthrax had some good stuff in the beginning when they were actually a thrash metal band.
Right.
And then when they stopped and they were like, now we're going to do this rap rock thing. That's when Scott Ian took over in my mind. This is Scott Ian to me. Is like the guy that's like, I'm not really metal, but I'm kind of in a metal band and I'll have the goatee and stuff to look like I'm metal. But in reality, I really like rap music more than like metal.
You remember what I was talking about? Metal players that don't look tough and don't look That's Scott.
Dude. It's not that he's. You know what it is? He doesn't have the attitude.
No,
of a metal player. He's always big smiles and talking about shit that you wouldn't expect.
Not that I don't like him. I think
on every VH1 fucking hey, let's take a look at how this album was recorded. He's there. He's there somewhere.
Yep.
They're talking about. They're talking about
out of the toilet.
Yeah, they're talking about Blondie, right? And he's washing his hands from getting out of the shitter. And he's let me tell you what I think about Blondie. Yeah. And you're like, what do we care? We don't care what you think about Blondie.
Why do these interviewers always go to Scott Ian?
I don't know. Him and Henry Rollins both, right?
Yeah,
Henry Rollins. has to weigh in on everything that's on VH1. Everything. It could be about action figures, and he's like, let's talk. Like I got something to say about this. It's like
Henry Rollins. I love Henry Rollins.
I love him too. I mean, actually, I like that he's on all that stuff. But it's just him and the Andrew WK too. That guy that did all the party metal. Like they use him all the time, and I just sit there and scratch my head like, what makes you the authority in this? Like, what does care what you think about it?
Isn't Scott Ian married to like I think his father-in-law is Meatloaf.
It wouldn't surprise me.
I want to say it's Meatloaf. I mean, he's just the kind of guy that he does seem like he'd be the kind of guy that would be fun at a party. Seems like he'd kind of be the fun, like the life of a party. Scott Ian, but I'm wondering why, like you said,
he's the adopted. No, she's the adopted daughter of Meatloaf. So his father-in-law is Meatloaf.
Yep, and I have to laugh because it's like, okay, we're gonna talk about the Carpenters. Scott Ian, how did the Carpenters affect your
what?
Tell us about your Barry Manilow collection.
No, it's like. So tell us about that one time you met Chuck Berry. Like it's like, wait, what?
It's like Scotty.
Well, I was taking a pee,
Everything, yeah.
And then walks Chuck Berry,
He's still playing the guitar.
They were signed to the same label. That was like that why they knew each other or whatever. Like he met him one time in the bathroom over at, a wrist or something. Like, what?
I knew a guy that actually did that at a gig, just as a.
I have heard many "let's meet somebody at a urinal" stories before.
Oh my God! So this guy comes in. He's got his guitar around his neck, right? And he's doing this with his left hand while he's peeing, wirelessly. Goes out, rinses one hand, wipes it off on his jeans, and walks out the door.
Jackal.
Oh, Jackal. Yeah,
where the guy thought he had a minute or so to pee off the side of the stage behind his amps, and then suddenly they started, and he has to come running out with his dick hanging down, and he puts the guitar in front of it, just goes nuts for like 10 minutes before he can zip up.
Jackal's one of those bands that never got airplay.
Yeah, but when you hear that story, you're like, yeah, that's Jackal. Like that's what it sounds like. They're playing chainsaws on stage. There's no doubt his dick was hanging out. None whatsoever.
That was hilarious. Those guys, that's another band where it's like.
No, Eddie Trunk made them too. He had to
have. Without Eddie Trunk, Jackal wouldn't exist.
Yeah, no. Alice in Chains, I heard that Eddie Trunk was like in the background, doing the on some of the songs.
So one of the they had one of these songs on it. It was that rap rock album that you talked about with Scott Ian. Vocal credit.
Public Enemy. It was Bring the Noise or whatever. I forget what the name of the record was, but yeah.
And they gave Eddie Trunk vocal credits because he was one of the people shouting in the background.
He probably was.
No, he was.
I'm sure he was, because he is responsible for everything that's happened in rock or metal or even pop music in the last since he's been alive, basically.
Yeah, he wrote.
What year was he born in?
Yeah, he wrote "Fear of the Dark" by Iron Maiden.
Did he?
No,
I'm sure he did. No, Jim. Come on.
He was born in everything that rushed him.
He was born in 1964. So, what Beatles album came out that year? Because that had to have been his responsibility.
The first one. Yep.
Yeah.
The first
Beatles. He found them all. He was in Germany, and there they were, and he was like,
"I got this. I got this."
He produced as an A&R guy. He signed his first band when he was like an infant.
Yep.
Before he was born, he was kicking his mother in the womb and saying, "Sign these fuckers."
I had to laugh because he was talking about the Rush and the whole Rush thing, and he was talking about how everything after Moving Pictures sucked.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, and he's like, I can't understand why anybody would listen to that. I'm like, you're talking to Geddy Lee in 5 minutes, and you're telling people how much his music sucks.
He's no longer a part of that metal show.
Oh no, that
ended in 2015.
2015, yeah.
And then in 2019 he did backing vocals on Anthrax's cover of a Kiss song, "Parasite."
That's it.
Oh my God.
Yep. Parasite, he did that too. Yep. He had some other thing. And did you get the A&R years? I think he was an A&R guy from 87 or 88 to 91 or something like that.
Is he responsible? No, he did. So here's some of the bands that he allegedly signed. The Beatles, we covered that one already. Metallica, Anthrax, Van Halen. No, well, moving on.
Let's go to real.
These are the real ones, right? So Anthrax, Raven, TT Quick, Manowar, Overkill, King's X, which is a band that, like, if he didn't sign him, somebody else was gonna.
Yeah.
Prophet, Icon, and Ace Frehley. So really, out of that list of bands, there's Anthrax,
King's X.
He was an employee of Megaforce, so they had signed Metallica and Anthrax. But anyway, he earned executive producer credit on some works in the band. So this is not bands he signed. So, it doesn't say who he signed. These are people that he had an executive producer credit. So Anthrax, Raven, TT Quick, Manowar, Overkill, King's X, Prophet, Icon, Ace Frehley. And as you know, being an executive producer just means that, like, you knew them and they liked you enough that they were going to credit you on the album, and you may not have any impact on it.
Actually, usually an executive producer position also means you either gave or found money.
That's just a regular producer, Jim. Executive producer, sometimes it means you gave or found money. A lot of times it just means that you somehow helped the production along, and so they give you an executive producer credit. And in music, a lot of the times it means you're just a buddy with the band and, like, you're really close to them and you have a position of power. So we're going to make you an executive.
Yep. And he was with Megaforce. But after that, he was a radio DJ, and then
he's not really much
that metal show. And then
his career is not that stellar.
It's a non
make out to be a lot more stellar than it is.
Well, he makes that.
Well, there are people that are big fans of this guy too.
Yeah.
So if you are a big fan of him, we're not trying to diss you. We're kind of riffing on the fact that, like, he does portray himself as being slightly more important than history would find him. So, especially musical history, for that matter. Actually, for him being as big a part of the scene as he is, like, his Wikipedia page is very small, very short. There ain't a whole lot going on here.
Yep.
So, yeah, it is what it is, I guess.
So, lastly, I want to plug somebody. So, Angel and the Stars are going to be touring in the East Coast.
Yeah, now, you've been posting a lot about them.
I'm going to say something. If you have a chance to check the Stars, just listen to a song called "It's a Riot," Coliseum Rock. Actually, it starts Coliseum Rock, "It's a Riot." The song we're calling. Yeah. Coliseum Rock is an instrumental that introduces "It's a Riot." If you just listen to that one song, you'll see why I loved the Stars in the 70s. And they're touring with Angel. I don't know if anybody remembers Angel. They were another one of those bands that, unless you saw them back then, you probably never heard of them.
Wait. Did Eddie Trunk sign them?
No. But he did say a lot of good things about them. But it was kind of almost left-handed as far as Angel goes, or they call it backhanded or backhanded compliment. Where he said, yeah, it's great that Angel's getting packed together, two of the original members are, in this thing. But their big thing was the stage show. Because if you look at Angel, first of all, they made sure that if you look at Angel, the logo, if you turn it upside down, it also says Angel. The way that they wrote the logo, which was a cool thing. I had the first record. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. When you're 13 or whatever, that's a cool thing. And they had this big theatric, kind of like Ghost does. They had this big theatric, thing. Imagine Angel, so it's Angels. So they had this big theatric thing going on. The Stars were more just straight up rock. They were guys in tight pants and with girls screaming for them and singing songs that at the time were lyrics that you just didn't get on the radio.
Right.
The songs like "Cherry Baby" in "It's a Riot." They asked, where was I last night? I was home. I was out with the police chief's wife. Those kinds of things. This was the 70s.
It reminds me of a Deep Purple song called "Farmer's Daughter." If you haven't listened to it, check it out.
Yeah, it sounded so it sounds so tame now, but it was so, edgy back then. And we were moving. Unfortunately, they hit in the late 70s, which was that whole movement towards that disco was in. And so you weren't going to get So Young, So Bad, Cherry Baby and that kind of thing on the radio because people were busy listening to Staying Alive and Night Fever.
Right.
But if you get a chance to see them, I am going to try to catch a show, if I can, in New Jersey, which means driving from here to New Jersey, catch a show, probably sleep in my car and drive home all stinky and sweaty.
Are you going to sleep in the trunk of your car?
In the Eddie trunk. As a matter of fact, my trunk wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Eddie trunk, because it's called the Eddie trunk.
I think the name of this episode is From the Trunk.
From the trunk. Where's the beef?
Yes. And so, with all of these things that we've talked about in this episode, I hope that you've enjoyed our smorgasbord bullshit.
Yes.
And thank you for tuning in. Thank you for those that contribute to the Patreon and watch us live tonight. I have been David.
I have been Jim.
And tonight we have been your Practical Guitarist.
Woo!